Okay, thank you, Commander. Can you hear me okay?
Excellent.
Okay. Well, there's no English word to greet someone midday because I know we have people on the West Coast and East Coast. So, καλό μεσημέρι. All right. All right. All right. So this is the boot camp, and this is we are here to talk about what we expect from you. And let me dispense with a couple of things that we are not. Okay. So this is not an award. This is not a tribute to you. This is not any kind of a lifetime achievement award. This is not anything that you display up next to the many other achievements that you have accomplished in your life, because really this is not the end of the line. This is the beginning of the line. There are about 750 Archons across the United States, 750. That's it. This year, I think, Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're making 18 and we lost about 40. All right. So we actually shrunk a little bit. Now, let me tell you how you got here, right? Because again, it's not a lifetime achievement award. It's a calling, and you are now on the starting line, right? You have done nothing. So the one thing that I'm not going to do is I'm not going to congratulate you because you haven't done anything yet. If you do some of the things we're going to talk about here, okay, you'll earn a congratulations. And more importantly, you'll earn, points in heaven, hopefully. So, all right, let me talk about how you got here. So what happened was somebody in your community, probably another Archon, saw a potential in you, like you're kind of like a seed, right? And so they foresaw that you have the ability to really grow into a giant tree and to be a force and to be one of the 750. And so they nominated you. It then went to your parish priest. The parish priest looked it over, decided, okay, yeah, this is good. We want this guy. It then went up to your metropolitan, same process, validation process. It then goes to there's a committee of the National Council that evaluates the applications. And by the way, this year we switched it to an application process rather than a nomination process, because this is not a brother-in-law deal. We want the very best, the best of the best, and we want to open it up to everybody, right? So, and I will tell you, there were a great many more that applied that then made it in terms of the recommendation from that committee. I think we're supposed to make 20 a year. We couldn't find 20 that met the criteria. We found 18. So that committee winnowed down the list to 18, the 18 of you that are watching right now. And that list then went to the National Council, where it was vetted again. Okay. It then goes to the Archbishop, who vets it again. And it then goes to the big man in Constantinople, who goes over every application with microscopic detail. And it's either thumbs up or thumbs down. And when he approves each of you, then it comes back to us and you become Archons-elect. So that's how you got here. So you literally were under the microscope through, I don't know, 7 or 8 different layers, I suppose. And we are now left with the 18 of you from the many, many more that had applied. And the reason we picked you is because I think you will find, and I've been involved in various organizations, church organizations, and I will just candidly admit to you, some of those are a colossal waste of time. It's like a dog chasing its tail. They just kind of go in circles. This is without a doubt, the single most dynamic, active, organization in the church. It's also the smallest. Okay, so it's kind of like the 300 Spartans, if you will, right? And largely that's because it begins at the top, and that's Dr. Limbarakis, who is a full-time Archon and a part-time physician. I mean, truly, I think the guy puts in more hours doing this than he does, feeding his family. But it's not just him. It's not just him. It is a whole host of people. Now, back in the day, it was a Lifetime Achievement Award, and there were a lot of people that really didn't do anything. They would get their officium, they would show up at Archon Weekend. They'd feel kind of great, they'd feel kind of honored, and then we never heard from them again, right? And really when and it's been morphing every year, but really when Dr. Limbarakis became national commander, it really took a hard turn from kind of a passive organization to an active organization on whatever, in the HOV lane. I mean, in the fastest and most active and dynamic group of people you can find. Okay, now you are going to be an apostle of truth, okay? And what do I mean by that? We're going to show you here in just a minute some of the misinformation that is out there. But here's the problem, right? We are in a world right now, truly, on the local level, on the national level, on the international level, we can't even agree on what is true. Okay, there's no unifying sense of truth. Now, that truth is out there, but because of the rampant use of social media, the polarization we see on news channels, the godlessness that takes place in most mainstream media now, it's very difficult to ascertain what is true. And you, one of the 18 that is coming, that will become an Archon, is there to spread the truth about what is going on in Turkey and to use that truth to encourage action on the part of local officials, state officials, national officials, executive officials in the State Department and the White House, and on the international scene. And we expect you to employ time, talent, and treasure. And we're going to get to that in a little bit about exactly what that means. But what I'd like you to do right now is you have a box that was mailed to you. Would you please just, I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to please go get that box. And I'm going to ask you to please open it now. And we're going to go through very quickly what is in that box. And you're going to be given some assignments in connection with that box. So I'll give y'all a couple of seconds to get that, please. I should have planned some background music here, Anthony, but I don't have it, so.
Well, why don't you sing the hymn of St. Andrew?
You don't want me to say, hey, listen, you don't want to turn these guys away.
Where's Dr. Nicholas Lucian when you need him?
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah,
All
what
right.
a voice he has.
Okay, so hopefully you've opened your box. All right, the first thing is this folder, okay? This folder. That's the thing at the top of the box. So let's open the folder. Now, what you're gonna see here first is this, and this is a pledge card, okay? I'm gonna get to why this is important in just a little bit. And a lot of Greeks, there are two taboo things with Greeks, and that's talking about money and talking about politics. Okay. Well, I love taboo, right? So, we're gonna cover about why you have to give, and you're gonna see in just a minute what we're up against. Okay. The next thing that's in there is the 5 key issues. There's a little folder here like this. Right? These are the topics that Dr. Limbarakis just went through. We have a little folder here, which is the church that Dr. Yalarakis rebuilt in Turkey, and that the Turkish government, the forestry department, actually tore down. And again, it's the 5 issues. These are members of, this is the Archon class. okay? That these are the 18 of you that are being made Archons this year. And I would encourage you all, since you're all in the same class, to get to know one another, maybe set up a text string, an email string, whatever. But you're part of this family now. Okay, next, we've got this, which is the biography of His All Holiness, okay? And we're going to require you to read this within the next 60 days. Now, that's not an ambitious thing. If you do 15 pages a day, you'll get done with it. It's a fantastic book, and it tells the story of His All Holiness, who is, I think, now the longest serving patriarch in our history. Okay.
Yes, in the history of Christianity.
Correct. Okay. Next is a fantastic book talking about the 30-year genocide. And I mean, this is a very captivating book. And I encourage you all to read it. It's not required like this one is, but it's a great book. It's a really, really great book to kind of show you how seamless this asphyxiation has been with the Turks over this time. We have, there's some more books in here, and I'll skip those. There's a little study on the religious minorities of Turkey. We have the Archon newsletter, this thing here, which I think we're going to go virtual here in the future. It's going to be emailed rather than hard copy. Is that right, Anthony?
Yes, yeah. In fact, the current newsletters are on the website. They're digital current ones.
Okay, so this is a little recap of the biggest things that happened during the past 6 months or so. And I encourage you all to please, when you get this, read it so that you're aware of what we're doing. Okay, then we have this, which are the Ophikion. It's a list of all the titles for all the Archons. You will find the title that you will be invested with is in this book. We have when Pope Benedict visited the Ecumenical Patriarch, first time in centuries that a Pope visited the Ecumenical Patriarch. And here's an interesting thing about Pope Benedict, okay? I mean, we loved him. He was the most Orthodox Pope, probably in the last 1,000 years. He was an instructor at the Orthodox Institute in Switzerland before he became ordained as a Catholic priest. I mean, he was there teaching Orthodox history and doctrine before he became a priest. If you read his readings and his writings and his statements, they sound, I mean, you're going to get deja vu. They sound very much like something that one of our patriarchs would say. He's very, very, just great man. And the current Pope is also, we have great relations with him as well. All right, then we've got bylaws. We've got your little pin, which Batman and Robin are going to talk about in just a minute, and I'll tell you who that is. Then we've got the Rocky cards, and you're gonna see that what these are in just a minute. And then because you might throw out your back, we've included a little tote bag here so you can put your stuff in there with the big seal. All right. So now I'm going to introduce two really extraordinary guys, and with all due respect to our national commander who does an amazing job, just extraordinary job. You know, I may be in the minority here, but I think probably the most important position in the Archon structure and hierarchy is the regional commander. And the reason I say that is because it is the regional commander who is responsible for gathering up the Archons and taking action on the local level, right? There's a famous saying that all politics is local. Really, with the Archons, all activity is local as well. And there is, and two extraordinary regional commanders are Gus Pablecas and John Manos of Chicago. I mean, if we could clone these guys, we would do it. And it is very, very inspiring to watch them and what they do and how they do it. And so, because you just got this presentation from Dr. Limbarakis, and it probably seems very overwhelming, and you're thinking, "Oh my goodness, how do I merge into that?" Well, let me turn it over to John and Gus now, and they're going to tell you how you enter the HOV lane to get involved and to do what we expect of you. All right.
Thank you, John. The check is in the mail. Thank you, buddy. On behalf of Regional Commander John Manos and myself, we bring you greetings from Chicago and welcome to the Archon Boot Camp. You know, you probably, when you're looking at the agenda, you see boot camp, you're not sure what you're going to see. This is probably what you're visualizing this is going to be about. Well, but it's not a bad representation, but we're not going to ask you to get down and give us 20, but we are going to ask you if you would please listen very carefully and closely what's expected of you when you become an Archon. Very, very important, especially when we heard Dr. Limbarakis tell us all of the issues that are facing. It's serious business. And as we work together, we build a strong unit. We are one unit operating out of the Archdiocese, and we are the soldiers of the Ecumenical Patriarchate. We work very hard for the emblem that we wear, that we represent. And the Band of Brothers is right here for the Ecumenical Patriarchate. We are the last line of defense. Who's protecting the Ecumenical Patriarchate? It is the Archons. It's going to be you. It's going to be us. We are the last line of defense. We are the foot soldiers. We look at defenders of the faith. We hear that. What does it really mean? We know what the word defend means, right? Right? Think about your children. We defend, we protect, we shield, we guard, we safeguard. We keep secure from danger and attacks. My fellow Archons-elect, we are under attack right now throughout the world. Religious freedom is under attack. And yes, people are dying because of their religious beliefs. John?
Thank you, Gus. We do. We need to get the word out. Do you know who your regional commander is? Do you know where they are? There's usually 2 to each metropolis. So make sure you find out, make it a point to go meet with them, to communicate with them, not just now, but on a regular basis. Participate at all of the events, all your church events, all the metropolis events, all the Philoptochos events. Go to the youth events and talk to them, all of the ministries under our church. Be seen and make sure they know who you are and that you are an Archon. Here's some examples of these. This is one by Alexander Buildings at a lecture on The Eagle Has Two Faces. Another one is one that we did here with Archon theologian John Fotopoulos under the metropolis of Chicago, where he did a religious freedom presentation. We had also another one here shows Archon Regional Commander and Executive Council Member Dr. Nicholas Lucian on St. Andrew's Day doing a religious freedom presentation. We were honored and asked to do a religious freedom presentation at the National HEPA Convention, and we had our friend Archon Tommy Ura with us at that event. Another example is Dr. Carrie Liberakis, again, at an Archon Religious Freedom presentation. And these are just some examples going through, again, of what we can do and what you can do to get involved and to get the word out. Archon theologian Dr. George Dimakopoulos and Archon Dr. Ted Vlahos. Look at that room. It's wall-to-wall people, standing room only. And we've been covered by national reporters, Fox News, I believe that's Harris Faulkner, our very own John Metaxas, and many, many others as we go through that. Gus?
Yeah, and John, Archons, it's important for us. You see, the Archons are getting out, we're spreading the word. It's amazing how many times that we go out, and your regional commanders can tell you, Archons can tell you, people at the end of our religious freedom presentations don't have any idea of what's happening with the religious freedom issues at our ecumenical patriarchate. And when they leave, they're asking us more questions, and we're handing out what you're going to learn later, the Rocky cards, and people are beginning to learn. We, again, are the foot soldiers getting out. Here, again, is a demonstration. So we're not always just out giving presentations. We're making ourselves present as Archons. Participate in local parades, the Greek parade, the independent parades. Get out there, be visible, let people know who we are and what we represent. Now, all of the information that you're going to learn today, we want you to go back to your local parishes, and we want you to meet with your local priest at your parish. Sit down with your local priest, explain to them what you've learned here today. And again, they do know, but they want to hear it from you too. What is the mission of the Archons? What can you do? Work with your priest, work with your local Pablecas to put down maybe refreshments after you make a religious freedom presentation at your local parish. It's a great way to start. Don't make them any longer than 20 minutes. You don't want to lose them. Have Pablecas serve the refreshments after your presentation. You don't want to feed them before your presentation because you'll lose them mentally. This is what we've learned. Your regional commander will help you with the presentation. In your packet, you'll have the 5 key issues. John and I will be happy to help you put on the presentation and share the presentation with it. Very, very important. So get out there, work with your local priest. Meet with your local metropolitan, with your regional commander. Go see your metropolitan. We are one team. We are one umbrella fighting the same cause. Work with your metropolitan, work with your regional commanders, your brother Archons, to get out and make new programs and go out and spread the word. Very important. Another very important issue, support your regional commander in forming an annual Archon business meeting. So you get together with your brother Archons, invite your metropolitan, invite your local priest, meet and discuss your agenda. So we as regional commanders can report back to New York what we're doing, that we're active, that we have earned the right, the emblem, if you will, of Archons in spreading the good word. When you go out and you do your religious freedom, don't just focus on your parish by itself. The Patriarch is the leader of 300 million Orthodox Christians throughout the world. Go to other Orthodox organizations and spread the word what's going on with the Ecumenical Patriarchate. You know, we're very lucky because we get a lot of support out in the field from New York. You've seen that Dr. Limbadakis is going out internationally and spreading the word. Dr. Limbadakis, as our national commander, has gone to individual metropolises and has assisted regional commanders on putting on religious freedom presentations, along with our Secretary of the National Council, Judge Bazanelos, has also traveled to help us. And by the way, in your package, you will see a patriarchal property report. Look that up and read it. It's very informative because you as Archons, when you give these presentations, you are going to be challenged by people out there when you begin to teach them. And I will say, what about this? What about that? You have to have the answers. The answers about what's going on politically in Turkey against our ecumenical patriarchate is clearly laid out in the patriarchal property report. Look at it, study it, get to know it, become visible. And even John Zavitsanos, our litigator, our trial lawyer from Texas will come and visit. He speaks not only on religious freedom issues, but he will also talk about the charter schools, the Turkish charter schools, the influx of Turkish money coming into the United States to influence. Be present, be active, be who you are. John?
Wear your pin and wear your badge that we gave, your vest badge. The pin, I tell you, every day on my sports jacket, I won't leave the house without it. The vest badge I'll wear at any and all kind of presentations. Even at church, it amazes me how many people still come up to us today and kind of asking, what is this about? Where is it? What is it? What does it reference? Speak to your family, people at your church, work and social gatherings, and create this awareness. You know, Gus and I gave this religious presentation at St. Demetrius Church in Elmhurst, Illinois, and that just stands out to me. It was one of the first ones that we did the first year out. And at the end of our presentation, you know, as Gus said, we do about 20-minute presentation, and then we have another 15, 20 minutes of Q&A. And Father Andrew was kind enough to give us a little extra time. And one of the questions at the end was, why bother? Why do you bother? You know, the Muslims are going to take us over mathematically, whatever. The priest comes running out of the altar, grabs the microphone. He says, out of my cold, dark hands will that ever happen. So, you know, that is the defend and the protect and promote portion of this. Everywhere you go, everything you do will relate back to this. So when you wear this vest emblem and that little young person comes up to you, or a couple months ago, it was a little old lady and she said, you know, I've never seen that before. What does it represent? What does it mean? What is it for? That's where you get this opportunity to talk to them and to create awareness as to what we're doing here. Gus?
Yeah. Well, and you know, as Dr. Limbadavicus spoke about, you know, John, you want to talk a little bit about the resolutions and how if the Archons didn't get together out in the field under the direction of Archon George's son, why don't you tell them what happened in Minnesota?
Archon Jorgensen and Senator Chris Murphy in Stamford, Connecticut. Before that, you know, we have the political involvement here, and as Commander Limbadavicus alluded to earlier, and John Zavitsanos, it's intense that we try to promote as much of this as we can. So this is last year, we were, after years and years and a lot of time and effort from Archon Bill Spell up there, we joined our metropolitan, and they passed one of the 2 or 3 states, I think, that were left in the state of Minnesota, the religious freedom resolution that we had as that initiative. Thank you, Gus.
You know, John, that's exactly right. And Archons, listen up to this. We could not get Minnesota passed. We couldn't get it passed, and we said it's not going to happen. Bill Spell stepped up. So every Archon has some type of God-given gift. Bill stepped up, and somehow he got this done. So when we thought it was lost forever, an Archon came up and he made it happen. So what does that tell us? Ideas. All good things start with some kind of idea. So that's what we're asking from you. We want you to think outside the box. We want you to make a difference. So an idea came up. You know what? Why don't we start branding the Archons? Our image is very, very important on who we are. We need to be proud of our badge, of our emblem. Okay, so how many times do you walk around and people will see, even in your own parish, and they'll say, all right, this guy's an Archon, you know, how much money did they give? You know, we're going to talk about that in a second because John Zavitsanos touched on that. You know, listen, perception becomes reality in people's minds. Our job is to brand the Archons. Now, if you notice, you know, we have taken on an idea of not only including the logo, but also every time you see the logo on the back of the hat, archons.org, archons.org. Coffee cups, back of it, archons.org. Pop sockets. This is John Manos's idea. I don't even know what a pop socket was. He came up with, and I tell you, we couldn't keep them in stock. Kids were just crazy about them. What's the logo? You got our address over there. John and I can guarantee you that there are young adults walking around on campuses and in the wintertime with our skull caps, logo on one side and the web address on the other side. Ideas. Some Archons came up with ideas. Why don't we have water bottles and get these out to the Funari kids, the college kids? You know what? They look at the logo, and I guarantee you that some kid is Googling on the bag, what is this archons.org? Very, very important. We are now, as Archons, not only going to give representations to the adults, we got to start reaching out to the young leaders, the future leaders. Let's change, let them understand what the Archons are all about. John, why don't you mention what's going on at the universities?
We were honored to, and we were able to do a presentation at the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana, where we flew in Dr. Elizabeth Prodromou from Tufts University, is a very renowned speaker. And I tell you, we were just impressed. Gus and I did the 20-minute presentation. Dr. Prodromou did her presentation, and then we opened it up to the Q&A. But, you know, getting this exposure to the youth is incredible, especially to that age group over 16, 17 years old on up to the 20, 22, 25-year-olds, where they're really understanding this, and there's they have no familiarity of the persecution that's going on a day-by-day basis. So the room was filled with not only university students and professors, but really people from the community. It was an exciting and exhilarating conversation. And these are all events, whether it's the water bottles, whether it's the skull caps, whether it's the youth camps that Gus and I have went out to. They're local initiatives. Like John Zavitsanos said, this is local stuff. It's grassroots stuff. This is where you need to take the initiative to go out there. Nobody's going to come grab you by the hand and say, oh, you got to do this and you got to do that. And you have to do, and you have to wear your pin. This is you. Take it on yourself. Review the plan, the program with your regional commander, and go do it. Yeah. Gus?
Yeah, look at the young kid asking questions. The young adults were asking serious questions about religious freedom. So we started thinking, and when I say we, I mean all of us collectively. We are one family under one umbrella out of New York. That's who we are. We are sharing these ideas with you to go back home, talk to your regional commanders about instituting maybe some of these programs. And if you have ideas, call us. We'd love to hear them, because this is what dreams become a reality. So we decided, you know what, we're getting such a great input from the youth. Why don't we go to the y'all groups? And out of all of the religious freedom presentations that we've done, and again, I say we collectively, one of the most engaging was with the y'all group. They're sharp, they're intelligent, they're inquisitive, they're engaging. And the two questions that the first two questions they asked us under Q&A is, why are there no women archons? And how much money do you have to give to be an archon? Perception becomes reality in their mind. And by the end of the evening, we hope that some of them might have walked away. We had mentioned to them that, you know, there is support and discussion about the women. And, you know, maybe there is some type of myth about money and archonship, but you know what? That's changing today, because now we're going to show them exactly what the archons are all about. You know, and John and I, we went out to Fanari. John, you want to talk a little bit about Fanari and what went on over there?
Incredible. You know, I'm sure our Fanari camps are not unlike the ones that you have at your metropolis, and where your kids went, or grandkids, or whatever. And, you know, we're talking hundreds of kids, and we're talking, you know, you really have their focus and their attention for whatever amount of time it is that they allot for you. So we went out there. Gus did a few sessions. I did a few sessions, and these kids were just incredible. I mean, they just could not get enough of an understanding of who the patriarch was, where the patriarch is at. And sure, you know, they may have heard it in church a little bit, they may have heard it from their parents a little bit, but nowhere near did they get an understanding to this level. So it was exciting and exhilarating, I think, for them to take it to the next level. And as Gus said, you know, when you do the whole protect and promote thing, it's like, well, why? Why are they doing this to them? Why are they after the patriarch? Why is the government doing that? So it's very educational. Gus?
Yeah, you know, and we brought it down to their level. These kids have water bottles, okay? Archons, logos. They have the caps, Archons logos. They have the pop, whatever those pop sockets. They have that too. So what we did is we brought it down to them and said, look, who protects your family against crime? It's the police. It's the law enforcement. Who's protecting your religious rights from you wearing your cross? How would you like somebody to take away that cross? Well, now the kids began to relate. It is the archons of the ecumenical patriarchate that protect our faith, our Orthodox faith. Keep that in mind. And so they walked away. We believe that they understand now. This is the branch of the archdiocese that's entitled to and has the duties to serve and protect. We hope that you will not let us down and that you will make us proud, Archons-elect. John?
Have you been to the Patriarchate? Why don't you set up a plan to go to the Patriarchate? There's many opportunities to go, whether it's from your metropolis, from the archdiocese, from your church, or just your family. We've been humbled, Gus and I, to have been there 3 times over the past 5 years. I went 1 time prior to that. So indeed it is, and you really understand that whole concept of protect and promote. And I tell you, the first time I went there, it was incredible. I was humbled to be there with the Archbishop of Crete at the time. And, you know, we went for dinner. I think it was our 2nd or 3rd night there at a seafood restaurant on the Vosforo. And we're sitting there and there's 3 tables of us. There were like 24 of us there. And they bring the first course, which was a fish soup. And I'm sitting next to the Archbishop and he starts eating. And he was a little elderly, you know, and I'm kind of embarrassed. And then all of a sudden people are looking at me and it's like, well, you know, he forgot to do prayer. And I leaned over and I said, Your Eminence, you know, should we do prayer before we begin our meal? And he says, Όχι παιδί μου, όχι εδώ, γιατί τους δημιουργούμε προβλήματα. So no, we don't do that here because we create problems for our local patriarch, for our local priests. Really? In the year 2011, I cannot do my cross out in public next to my priest. I mean, that really hit home for me. The next day, he left early. We were there for 7 days. He was there for 4 or 5 days. And we went to meet with His All Holiness. And we had the meeting. And, you know, we then escorted the Archbishop outside because he was going to go to the airport. And I go outside and I see these 4 black vehicles out there. And you know, the Patriarchate, if you've been there, you know, it's not in the nicest of neighborhoods. And, you know, they're very cautious about who pulls into that street. And I'm looking and it's, you know, 3 or 4 black vehicles. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty good. I didn't know. And I was impressed that we had set up for that arrangement to take the Archbishop there. And all of a sudden, these guys in dark suits started coming out. And it was not limo drivers. It was the Secret Service. It was the police there. The night before, someone had tossed a Molotov cocktail on the roof of the Patriarchate. So you want to talk about protecting? You want to talk about the daily abuse that our Patriarch and our Patriarchate is going through? This is happening now. It wasn't in the 1700s or in the 1800s or in the 1900s. This is happening now. So, you know, there's 750 of us here, plus or minus, in the United States, 1,300 worldwide. We are, in fact, soldiers of the Ecumenical Patriarch, and it does mean something that we have to step up and protect. You know, with that, we're going to close. Gus and I very much appreciate the opportunity to have to speak to you as a part of this boot camp. This is the highest honor in my life. I stand proud to represent this great organization. It speaks to my family and to my values. It represents where I came from and what I stand for. As I pray, it will for you. So stand proud, get up, and go do something about it. Call us. Call Gus, Rocky, John Zavitsanos, myself. Call our national commander, Dr. Anthony Liberakis. He's an amazing man, dedicating his life for this organization. Call our national board members. We all stand ready to support you and help you in any way we can. So we look forward to working with you. Gus and I thank you very, very much. And I now get the opportunity to introduce our next presenter to you, and that's Archon Franklin Sisson, or as we all know him, our brother Archon Rocky. Archon Rocky is from Assumption Church in Scottsdale, Arizona, but more recently he's in Washington, D.C. You know, he was a newer Archon, but he just did so much in the little time that he initially got involved with in such a short period of time, and he made such a huge impact right away that we wanted you to hear a part of that. So Rocky, it's all you.
Thank you very much, John. My new brother Archons, it's just incredibly exciting to be able to be with you and speak with you. I really look forward to meeting you in person and be able to welcome you. You notice I didn't congratulate anybody. I listened closely to what John Zavitsanos has said. Matter of fact, I'm thinking back to the weekend when I was invested as an Archon, and those words really rang true. John got up and said, "This isn't a lifetime achievement award. You are beginning right now. You are starting at zero. How are you going to take this and make an impact?" And that was one of the really hallmarks of that weekend for me. I have to think, one of the other elements that I was thinking of too during that weekend was I'm not quite remembering what the presentation was, but it was Michael Saudos. And Michael got up and talked about the first time he put on his Archon pin and the honor and the overwhelming change that made in his life, and how he felt that way every morning when he put that pin on. And I kind of dedicated myself that I wanted to feel that way. I wanted to be a part of that group. And so I'm so excited to welcome you and to look forward to you and look forward to meeting you. And the world you have in front of you is just unbelievable. I mean, the people you're going to meet, the work you're going to do, the friends you're going to develop, the inspiration you're going to have as it comes to defending the Mother Church and the work we all do together. It's just it's unbelievable. So trust me in that, and I look forward to seeing you in person. I have a bit of a theme, and my theme is don't wait to be asked. John just mentioned this, so did Gus. Don't wait to be asked. Don't sit there sitting back saying, when is someone going to call me and ask me to do something? Jump in, be ready, be prepared. They mentioned the Bartholomew book, and John Zavitsanos went over all the things in your book, in your box. This book is just unbelievable, and it reads almost like a novel as you look at the life of our patriarch, and not only the life of our patriarch, but the life of and the history of the ecumenical patriarch. It's unbelievable. So John said, read it in 90 days. You're going to love it. I brought this up, and I noticed, I remembered that inside, I took this book with me when I had the honor of meeting His All Holiness. I represented the Archons in Warsaw to speak on behalf of the Archons in the 5 issues. And I met His All Holiness, and he autographed this book for me. And I have to say, as John was talking about going to the Fanar, I don't even have words that describe the feeling I had when I entered the office of His All Holiness. In my job there, along with Costa Karis, was to sit down and report on this meeting we had gone to in Warsaw. But it was just overwhelming. And so as people say, plan that trip, make it a point of your mission in the Archons. It's a life-changing experience. I want to announce a little bit of a new program before I get into a couple things, and that is the Archon mentorship. We are asking the nominating Archons, those of you that are nominating Archons, and they're going to be receiving a notice from us to continue on this work as a mentor for that Archon that you have brought into the order. We would like you to call your Archon-elect after this meeting, answer any questions, be there, continue to encourage, be involved in their lives. Your work as the nominating Archon, what you did to get them to this point, doesn't end right now. We want you to continue in that role, continue to mentor and work, and continue to make sure that this new class, this very small class, comes in and is active and involved in delivering on what our charge is. In your box, John pulled up, you see these cards. Everybody's got these cards. You've got 2 copies of them. On the back of the card are the 5 issues, an abbreviated talk about each of the 5 issues. The commander went in depth. Part of your job is to really understand, know, and be able to articulate the 5 issues. But what we wanted to do as new Archons was to give Archons kind of an introduction, a way to talk about the fact that they're now an Archon and what they're doing. So you carry these cards with you. And it's a great discussion at your church with others. I'm a member of the Archons, excited to be made a member of this order. Our focus on the very top level is religious freedom. We bring it down to a focus on the defense of the ecumenical patriarchate, and then giving these cards out. Here's what we're focused on. And the reason we have two, the reason we have the icon of St. Andrew and his All Holiness is our job goes beyond just talking to Greek Orthodox Christians, our fellow Christians. Our job goes to all those that are interested and can be influential in the fight for religious freedom. I've had discussions about the 5 issues with all faiths. When I'm in Warsaw and we're talking in the lobby at this meeting, you have Muslim, I remember quite a discussion I had with someone from the Baha'i faith that was there talking about the persecution that they receive in Russia. You know, we were talking about this. I gave her a 5-issue card. She wanted to understand, you know, what was happening, because religious freedom, you can't fight religious freedom for one, you fight for all. So these are great cards. I have them in my pocket. I carry them with me wherever I go. And if I can get into a conversation, if someone says, hey, what's that pin mean? I'll start talking about it, or I'll lead it up to it. So these are available. You have them in your box. You have one of each. I find Orthodox Christians love the icon. And as we know, a fellow Orthodox never throws away an icon. If someone is not Orthodox, someone has difficulty with icons, the picture of his All Holiness is great. And it's a great way to start, way to have a conversation. You've got the 5 issues and it summarizes it. We actually have a new card coming that we're pretty excited about. And it's actually going to be here in a couple of days. So I think we'll be distributing them. But it's a card strictly devoted to Hagia Sophia. And on the front is a quote from His All Holiness about Hagia Sophia. And on the back is a timeline of the history of the Great Church of Christ with the pictures, the before and after picture of when Hagia Sophia, the way it looked before it was converted into a mosque, and then when the partitions are brought down, hiding the icons. And it's a card to then talk about what this conversion means and what it's done. And actually, we have 2 cards of the Hagia Sophia card too. We have one card where we use a quote from His All Holiness where he talks about, you know, the only use of Hagia Sophia, which respects and exemplifies its true mission, is that of a Christian house of worship. Its only use is that as a church. We have another card that talks, that again, it's where the All Holiness speaks that Hagia Sophia as a museum was a place that all faiths could come together. So we use them depending on the audience that we're in, depending on who we're talking to, again, to try to pass it out. I think I'm thinking back to John and Gus. I believe John and Gus pass these out as they're walking down the street at the Chicago Hockey Day Parade and hand them out. They've ordered thousands of them so that they can give them away and really try to spread the word in that way. Again, don't wait to be asked. Don't wait to be asked. Prepare yourself. Read the book, and there's some incredible resources that we have developed. I'm going to talk a little bit more about them later on, but we mentioned, the commander mentioned the Arkon App, which is available at the Apple Store. It's available for Android. And this app on your phone is your connection to the entire Archon world. It connects you to what's happening within our world as Archons. It also links to a second website that the Archons host and sponsor, which is christianpersecution.com, where we publish articles daily. And those articles are available on the app. We've just really updated it, and it's really exciting. So if for those brother Archons that haven't looked at it in a while, go to it, play around inside of it. You can really now organize articles, see what's going on. We'll have more about this later on in the meeting, but the new app is really, it's amazing. It's like within your phone, you can go and say, what's happening with the religious freedom in Turkey? What's happening in Greece? What's happening in Ethiopia? Hit the flag of that country and you can sort by that. You can see what's going on around the world in religious persecution. The Archons post 4 times a day on Twitter. We have 4 posts a day. So follow the Archons on Twitter. And these posts, one of the posts is a Christian persecution post. The other 3 relate either to the ecumenical patriarch or the Archon. So every day we're on there, and we're on Facebook and we're on Instagram. trying to spread the word, trying to break out. So we very much want you to be a part of that. I spend a lot of time. I'm kind of missing that I'm not in New York right now and they're not all together, because I can't even tell you how many Brother Archon's phones I've gone and downloaded the Arkon app on. So download the app, spend some time with it, play with it. You'll have a great time. The last point I really want to make is, I know this is a virtual Archon weekend, and hopefully next year we're all going to be together. But I know for myself, when I listened to the commander this morning, I'm reinvigorated. I mean, it's like going back to orientation. It's like getting that spirit and that fight when you see all that's there, listening to John, listening to Gus, listening to the whole group, what you're going to see this afternoon at the business meeting. Make it a point to be coming to Archon Weekend every year. It's almost a life-changing experience. So I welcome you. I was able, through the reading I did, through calling up regional commanders, through kind of making a point, trying to insert myself and ask, what can I do? One of the great things the new Archon can do when we open things up, and I've done this multiple times, is, as John said, talk to your priest. You know, I've made presentations at the churches I attend to about the order, and it just helps you as you talk more and you have that experience in getting that message out, because you are an evangelist. You're an evangelist for the order. You're an evangelist for religious freedom. You're an evangelist around defending the faith and understanding the tremendous pressure that the ecumenical patriarch is under. So welcome to the order. Again, I look forward to congratulating you in person. I'm so proud to share this great honor with you. And with that, I'm going to, one thing that I don't think I've heard mentioned yet is that last year, John Zavitsanos was the winner of the Nicholas J. Boris Award for Outstanding Archon Stewardship. You've heard the commander talk about Nicholas and what he delivered. John got that honor. So with that, it is my honor to introduce to kind of wrap up our boot camp area, John Zavitsanos. John?
Thank you, Rocky. Okay, a couple of things. I've got a presentation here that we're going to go through quickly. A few things. If you have questions, there's a chat feature at the bottom. Please type in your question. Gus Pablecas and John Manos are going to monitor those, and they will sort those at the end and read those. We're going to give them some discretion, but they're going to read them at the end. Okay. The second thing I will say is the 4 dirty words that we don't want you to say. Okay. And what is that? I'm available to help. Okay. I'm available to help. That's like a crossing guard is available to help, or somebody at the Social Security office is available to help. You're not passive. Okay. We picked you for initiative. You should not wait to be asked to help, right? Get involved, and really you can start with educating our own people. David Letterman does this funny thing where they stop people on the street and they ask them if they can identify certain states, and most people can't. I'll bet that if you asked most of our faithful the name of the ecumenical patriarch, I would say over 50% could not name his name, even though he has served longer than any ecumenical patriarch in history. So start with your parish and work with your regional commander to do a presentation. You can do it on Zoom. Nobody has the excuse, I can't make it. I mean, they can be in their pajamas, sitting in their kitchen, drinking their cafe, watching you do the presentation. So please don't wait to be asked, get involved. All right. So now let's start this presentation, and I'm going to do this in 3 parts. I'm going to do some of the extraordinary things. Let me open this up here real quick. Okay. Enable content. All right, and let's see here. If we can I share screen, please? Okay. All right. go into presentation mode. Okay, so I want to start by talking about some of the extraordinary things in the history of the Orthodox Church. I then want to talk about some of the evil things that the Turks have done and are doing. And then I want to talk about the greatest challenge to our church, and that's the Russians, okay? So let's start with some of the extraordinary things that we are done. Let me give you a scenario, and please, I want to be crystal clear. I would never suggest this in a million years, but let's say that the Archbishop wanted to march with a bunch of white supremacists at the head of the line, right? You would say, oh my goodness, he's crazy. That's totally inappropriate, totally unethical, totally not who we're about, right? Well, that was the situation in the late 60s when Archbishop Yakovos showed up at the funeral of James Reeb, who had been murdered. Martin Luther King, who's on the cover of this picture here, reached out to a number of white clerics across the country, Catholics, Protestants, Orthodox. Nobody responded except one cleric. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, there's another white guy in that picture, right? That white guy is Walter Reuther, who was a labor leader. There is only one white religious leader in this picture, and that is our Archbishop. And just like the Archbishop today would catch a bunch of flack for marching with some very unpopular group, that's exactly the kind of pushback that he got when he did this and appeared on the cover of Life. This was earth-shattering when it came out, right? It was a different world back then. I know we all live in the moment right now, and of course, we are all in favor of equal rights, but that was not the world in the late 60s. But he wasn't the first, right? What was the first major religion between the Catholics and the Orthodox to have a black priest? Well, it was us. This guy, Father Raphael Morgan, he was a Jamaican, okay? And he found orthodoxy on his own. He traveled to Constantinople in 1915, got ordained, and that's before the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese even existed, right? Now you think about how extraordinary. A black guy coming up with the money to get to Constantinople in a country right in the midst of the Balkan Wars, and he goes there and he gets ordained, and he becomes a parish priest in Philadelphia. And his story then inspires Patriarch McGuire of the African Orthodox Church, and that church becomes part of the Greek Orthodox Church of Alexandria, right? So you see how even going back further in history, we've had a profound effect on the trajectory of the religions of the world. And this man died in 1922 at the age of 56. But wait, let's go back even further, okay? Let's go back to 1860. Ecumenical Patriarch Joachim II, okay? This guy was the Ecumenical Patriarch for 3 years. This was in the midst of the United States Civil War, during a time when the South was winning, okay? Or as we say here in Texas, during the Northern aggression, right? So it was during the time when the South was winning, and nobody of any major religion had condemned slavery except one figure in the world, and that was our Ecumenical Patriarch, Joachim II. And he actually authored an article in an anti-slavery newspaper called The Liberator at a time when the South was going to win the Civil War. That's what it looked like at the very beginning, right? And of course, at the time, he's under persecution from the Turks. And because he can relate with what is going on with African Americans here in the United States, he condemned it, right? Okay, so now I'm going to put this picture up, and you're probably have the munchies right now, I'm sure, right? Well, you know who this guy is, right? This guy is Bob Marley, and he was the crown prince of the Rastafarians. probably the most famous reggae musician ever. Rolling Stone magazine has him, I think, in the top 10 of most influential musicians of all time. 2 years before he died, he has an epiphany and he becomes Orthodox, okay? Much to the chagrin of a bunch of people in his camp. And he held on to it. He died Orthodox.
John, this is George Rockus. I feel funny correcting you, but it is Mr. Bob Marley. A great man.
George, do you need some Cheetos?
But it's Mr. Bob Marley.
Mr. Bob Marley. Okay. All right. Anyway, he was Orthodox, and you see, and I'm doing this to show you kind of the profound goodness that our religion, the tentacles of our religion, spreading out around the world. Okay. Now let's keep going. All right. So look at this picture now. I want you to really kind of soak this in for a second. This is one of the giant figures of the 20th century, two giant figures of the 20th century. Ecumenical Patriarch Athenagoras, probably the most famous patriarch in our history, with the exception of some of the early ones at the very beginning, okay, like John Chrysostom. So look at President Truman subjecting him. This is the President of the United States lowering his head to the Ecumenical Patriarch. Now, what's the story behind this picture, okay? All right, so December 8th, 1941, the day after Pearl Harbor, okay? First time the United States has ever been attacked by a foreign power. Archbishop Athenagoras, before he was patriarch, 56 years old, gets in his car and drives down to the government office to enlist in the military to fight on behalf of the United States government. Of course, they rejected him because he was too old. In 1947, in this picture, he gives President Truman a piece of the True Cross that he had acquired from Mount Athos. And he had just one, okay? Instead of holding on to it, he gives it to President Truman. In 1948, there's an enormous upheaval in Turkey. And the patriarch then is removed. And of course, we need this man, our archbishop, to become the ecumenical patriarch. The only problem is he is not a Turkish citizen, okay? And because, of course, as we saw from Dr. Limbarakis' presentation, you have to be a Turkish citizen to be the ecumenical patriarch. So President Truman, remembering a year earlier this picture and the fact that he got a piece of the True Cross and the extraordinary impact that Archbishop Athenagoras made on him, he ramrods our archbishop into becoming the ecumenical patriarch in Turkey, flies him over on Air Force One, okay? And by the way, it wasn't called Air Force One then, it was called the Sacred Cow, I think, right? And he understood the importance of international diplomacy and having a stabilizing figure in Turkey, and that was the ecumenical patriarch. And it is this contact that our history would be forever changed if this meeting had not taken place. Okay, now let's talk about these state resolutions for a second. Okay, and I know my brother Stefan Georgeson is up, and you can ask him offline later why he smells so good. Okay, he'll tell you why, but that's for another day. All right, so these state resolutions, what are they? You've heard a little bit about that. So this is the one we're looking at here from Brother Ted and Brother John in Florida, and basically this is a positive, aspirational statement asking the state legislature to recognize the importance of religious freedom in Turkey. Now, how can you be against that? I mean, we're not asking for money. We're not asking for any kind of appropriation. We're not asking anybody to take any action. It is purely a statement in support of the bedrock of the United States Constitution, right? So you would think this would be no problem to get this done. Okay. And this one here, as you see, as you're reading it, went to the Florida House of Representatives, right? So, and here's, and so let me give you some numbers. We have, you know, you can argue this point, but the over-under number of how many Greeks there are in the United States is about 2.5 million people that identify themselves as being Greek. Okay, there are 300,000 Turks in the United States, so we outnumber them enormously, right? And in 2012, we tried to pass a resolution in Texas, and I'm going to tell you this story very, very quickly. In fact, let me go to the next page here. This is Ted Poe, and I want you to remember that name. Okay, Ted Poe is he was a criminal law judge here in Harris County. He was crazy. He would make people he would make people wear placards out on the streets saying, "I'm a convicted child molester," and staying out there for 30 days before sending him off to prison, right? I mean, he got really famous about that, and he ends up getting elected to Congress, okay? And so we reached out to him. He's a strong believer of religious freedom, and I mean, we love this guy. He entered the House Foreign Affairs Committee, a very important position. And you'll see what he wrote here. He is advocating our position, right? Okay, so while we get Congressman Poe to write this letter, we're trying to pass the resolution here in Texas. The lieutenant governor of the state of Texas is the person responsible for putting things on the agenda, okay? And it's a guy named David Dewhurst, okay? And here's one of the things you're gonna see as I go through some of these slides here in just a second that you're gonna be shocked about. All right. And you may not be shocked about this, and that is politicians are for sale. Okay. And I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican, they all have a price tag. David Dewhurst grants us an audience, a group of us, and we go meet with him. We show him the resolution. There's nothing negative. We don't condemn anybody. It's all positive. And he points his finger in my face. He says, "Son, you got my word. I'm going to pass this resolution. Okay, and I don't like those Muslims, and you got my word on it." Okay, and we're like, "Okay, great, this is awesome, man. We're good. This thing, no resistance whatsoever." All right, we then get a woman by the name of Joan Huffman, who's a state representative, to carry the bill, to put her name on the bill. Okay, after those two meetings, we find out that a bunch of these Turkish foundations, which I'm going to talk about in just a second, paid for all expense paid trips for 100 staffers of state representatives, first class, to go to Constantinople, stay at the Four Seasons, stay there a week. These are the staffers making $25,000, $30,000 a year, flying first class, okay? And getting their butts kissed while they're over there, being treated like important dignitaries. I don't know what they gave to, hold on, let me back up here. I don't know what they gave to Dewhurst and to Huffman, but they pulled the bill, okay? And I'm gonna show you what they did in just a minute, but the Turkish lobby, look, our budget for the Archons is $1.3 million, okay? That is chump change when you're talking about handling international issues. The Turks, at least on record, pay anywhere from $9 to $10 million a year to lobbying firms in the United States. Now, that's just the lobbyists. They've set up literally scores, and I mean scores, of these foundations where you can't tell that they are Turkish, like the Pacifica Foundation, for example, where they give scholarships to kids, and the winner gets an all expense paid trip to Turkey. Or they'll host things for politicians, not just in DC, but at the state level. The Turkish government, through these foundations, has flown a majority of the members of the House of Representatives of the state of Idaho to go to Turkey. Now you think about that for a second, right? Because everybody knows Idaho is an important port bordering on the sea, and they have lots of trade with the Turks, right? I mean, that's the level of involvement that where they stick their hands into our national and local politics. I mean, we are talking on the scope of hundreds of millions of dollars that flow through these foundations and these lobbyists. Okay. By the way, this $9 million that's up on the screen right now, that was 14 law firms in that year, including this firm called Greenberg Traurig, which is supposed to be one of the premier law firms in the United States. Very, very connected. Okay. Okay. So why do they do that? Well, they do that because they are advancing, obviously, Turkish agendas. Let's talk about this woman. I'm gonna talk about three people, three incredibly slimy people. Okay. One of them is a congresswoman whose last name was Schmidt from Ohio. And what happened with her? Okay, so this is out of a magazine called Politico. There was a woman by the name of Jean Schmidt. And by the way, please understand, I am not advocating Republican. I'm not advocating Democrat. You know, I'm a singular issue guy. I look at, okay, number one, what is a politician's stance towards the ecumenical patriarchate? And number two, what is the politician's stance with regards to Greece? I mean, those are my issues, okay? And as an Archon, my first issue should be your first issue, right? Okay, so here we are, Jean Schmidt. Okay, what happened here? Well, about 10 years ago, the Armenians, God bless them, our brothers, they tried to pass a resolution in Congress recognizing the Armenian Genocide. This is the first genocide of the 20th century. This is the genocide when Hitler was warned about killing all the Jews. His response was, who remembers the Armenians? Okay. There's over 1.5 million Armenians killed at the turn of the century by the last days of the Ottoman Empire. Okay, so a bill gets introduced in the House to recognize the Armenian Genocide, okay? And this lady, she initially is for it, she's for the resolution, and then she's against it. Then she gets an opponent in the next election named David Krikorian, and you can tell by that name that he's Armenian. And he accuses her of taking a $30,000 bribe from the Turkish government to suppress this Armenian genocide resolution. And what does she do? She turns around and she files a lawsuit against him. Now, lawsuits require money, right? And she's on a government salary. So who gives her the more than $500,000 in legal fees to bury this guy in paper and to make him knuckle under? Okay, the Turkish Coalition of America, the TCA. Now, write that down if you got a little piece of paper there, because we're going to talk about them in just a minute. They fund her lawsuit against this guy to try to crush him for defamation, okay? There's only one problem. She never disclosed that they were giving her $500,000 in free legal work while this was going on. And here's an article. The Federal Election Commission ends up sanctioning her and the Turkish Coalition of America because this was all under the table and it had never been disclosed. Okay. And you'll see she got $651,000 worth of free legal services by an organization controlled by a foreign government. This is one of our people in Congress, okay, who is taking money under the table from a foreign power. All right. Now, next, this guy, okay? This guy just got pardoned, by the way. This is the slimiest person I've come across in terms of the Turkish issue. Let's look at what he did. And by the way, he was a Democrat. So I'm not picking on the Republicans because he served in the Obama administration and he also served in the Bush administration. 10 days before President Trump takes office, this guy makes a decision that they're going to pull back Kurdish fighters that were about to overtake an ISIS stronghold in Syria. The Kurds were our #1 ally in the Middle East, total allies with the Americans. ISIS wants to, I mean, we all know what ISIS is and how much of a threat they pose. This guy, Michael Flynn, who pled guilty to this, right? He accepts $500,000 under the table, not reported from the Turkish government. And he exercises his military authority to pull back Kurdish fighters from Syria, going in to kill ISIS fighters. And why did he do that? Because who hates the Kurds? The Turks, right? And he accepts $500,000 consulting from the Turks, right? And that's why he ended up leaving. And by the way, he also took money from the Russians, okay? I mean, this guy is as bad as it gets, all right? And next, let's go to Dennis Hastert. Now, let's talk about child molesters. This guy is the longest serving Speaker of the House in US history, okay? And he molested a bunch of children. And then he tried to cover it up. And he needed lots of money to cover it up. Well, who gave him the money to cover up the child molesting allegations? That's right, the Turks. The Turks gave him hundreds of thousands of dollars as a consultant, right? To cover up, to be able to pay off these people. And what did he do in exchange? Initially, he is supportive of a resolution concerning the Armenians. And then he does an about face and abruptly changes his mind, right? And you'll see the heading here that he's going to plead guilty. And this is from a few years ago, and you may remember this guy, okay? Now let's go back to Texas, right? I said I would get back to what happened after David Dewhurst gave me his word in his office with Chris Pappas, right? What does he do? Well, they drop the resolution in favor of the patriarchate, and the same two people, David Dewhurst and Joan Huffman, pass a resolution in support of the government of Turkey. Okay. I mean, this is unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. And so and look at some of the statements in this thing, right? That our resolution would discriminate against Turkish Muslims, Jews, and Christians who are not Greek Orthodox, and dangerously advocated against the secular democracy of Turkey. Okay, so, there's a concept called gaslighting. I'm sure y'all have heard of it, which is you just keep saying it over and over and over again. And eventually the lie becomes the truth and the truth becomes the lie. Okay. I mean, here is the Texas House of Representatives saying that the resolution proposed by the Archons is a threat to democracy. Okay. So when this happened, of course, we didn't do, like I said, we didn't use those 4 dirty words, I'm available to help. We actually took action. And so a bunch of us, and Chris Pappas, I don't know if he's on, God bless him. I mean, he's one of my heroes. We decided to reach out to every Orthodox, not Greek Orthodox, every Orthodox church in the state of Texas. And we got a bunch of them, man. We got a bunch of them. And we had over 15, and we came up with a form letter. We sent it to everybody. And we had 15,000 letters go out. Okay. They told me that year it was the most number of letters they had ever gotten about any kind of about anything in Austin. David Dewhurst did not win re-election, nor did Joan Huffman, by the way. We ended up forming a political action committee, and we took action against them for basically, I mean, I don't know if they took money under the table. I mean, who knows? You saw the 3 earlier ones where it was confirmed, based on investigations. Okay, so that's the one that we just talked about. All right, let's go on. Okay, so what else have the Turks done? Well, what is the one thing that our politicians are thirsty for? What is the thing that they want more than anything else in the world, right? They want a moderate Muslim. Okay, that is the thing that and this is, it's not just people on the left, but people on the right as well. That Islam is a religion of peace, and that that it is a peaceful religion, and they all don't want to cut our heads off. Okay, and you can decide for yourself whether that's true or not. You can go read the Quran. However, we know that Erdogan met with Ilhan Omar, that's the congresswoman out of Minnesota, and he encouraged Turks from around the world to send Congresswoman Omar money for her campaign. Okay, now this is a representative from the state of Minnesota getting money from Turks in Uzbekistan, in Turkey, in Central Asia, okay? And a lot of that money ends up being funneled through US-based foundations. And she is hardcore, man. She is very, very pro-Turkey, hardcore, okay? Now, I was picking on the Republicans earlier. I'm picking on the Democrats now. All right, so what happens? Well, Erdogan decides he's going to take $120 million of taxpayer money in Turkey, and he's going to build a mosque 13 miles from Washington, D.C. 13 miles from Washington, D.C. And there it is. Paid for 100% with Turkish funds. And why did we agree to this? Because we are thirsty for a moderate Muslim. Because in the United States, we ascribe to the belief that we are tolerant of all religions, that no religion is evil, that no religion advocates violence. And so we willingly went along with this, okay? So now keep in mind that 1 in 5 Turks in Turkey, according to a survey, that's 20% of the population, supports ISIS, okay? And let me give you a few figures about ISIS and whether Erdogan supports ISIS. So there were hundreds of ISIS fighters that were captured by the Kurds in Syria in 2017, okay? They had, when they were captured, they had Turkish exit stamps on their passports, meaning they were traveling back and forth to Turkey. Like if the Kurds were getting close or the Allied forces were getting close, they would go into Turkey and Turkey would allow that. We know that in 2016 in WikiLeaks, 58,000 emails between Erdogan's son-in-law, okay, this al-Bayrak, who helped ISIS sell oil stolen from Syria and Iraq to fund ISIS. We know that his daughter set up hospitals in Southeast Turkey to treat ISIS fighters. All of that is going on while this mosque is being built. And I mean, check this out, man. Look at this. This is like magnificent. Here's another one. And this is at the opening of the mosque. There's President Obama with Erdogan, right? And here, look at the inside. Look at this. I mean, this thing is astonishing, right? So, okay. So now let's talk about how do they influence, how is it that they influence people? Well, one of the things they do is there are literally hundreds and hundreds of congressmen and congresswomen that have gone to Turkey, all expenses paid. Well, how does that happen? Well, there is a law that prohibits foreign travel being funded by a foreign government. Okay, well then, how does that happen? Well, there's always an exception, right? And the exception is you can set up. There's an exception called the Mutual Education Cultural Exchange Act, which is it's okay to pay if a nonprofit pays for it. So the Turks have set up hundreds of such of these nonprofits. They're all 541c3. So if any of you want to make a donation to them, it's tax deductible, okay? And what is the purpose of these foundations? They fly congressmen and congresswomen over to Turkey, all expenses paid, like the Turquoise Council of America, for example. And who are some of the people that they have flown over there? Well, they have flown over people like Ted Poe. Remember, that's the guy that from Texas, the crazy judge who was against the government of Turkey. They flew him and his wife over to Turkey, all expenses paid, at the Four Seasons, royal treatment all the way. Now, here's the TCA. Remember, I talked about this? This is the group that got sanctioned by the Federal Employment Commission for giving that congresswoman money under the table by funding her lawsuit against the Armenian guy. We looked at that a few slides ago, right? So this is the TCA, and you'll see here, and look at the name of their president, Lincoln McCurdy. I mean, it might as well be like Opie Taylor, right? They don't have a Turkish guy running it. They have like the most pleasant sounding. I mean, how can you take issue with somebody named Lincoln? I mean, for goodness sakes, right? I mean, he must be a good guy. So here is Lincoln McCurdy talking about the core missions of our organization. And what is the core mission of the organizations? Well, the core mission is to, they need to have firsthand knowledge of Turkey, and Turkey needs to be presented in an accurate light in the American media and American government, okay? So if you go to Turkey, the first thing that happens, and it is required, in fact, the Archons had to do this, is you have to go visit the tomb of Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, the father of modern Turkey. Now, who is that woman in that picture? That woman in the picture is Jean Schmidt. That's the woman from Ohio that took money under the table after she changed her mind on the Armenian resolution. Okay, are you kind of seeing the common theme here? Okay, and here's look at this. So here's 200 trips for lawmakers and staff. This was in USA Today, by the way. And so what kind of information is the TCA, this Lincoln McCurdy, what kind of information are they putting out there? Well, let's take a look, okay? You know, they say that history is written by the winners. Well, that's true unless you're Turkish, okay? So here we go. This is the Balkan Wars, okay? And for many of us on this Zoom call right now, our grandfathers and great-grandfathers fought in the Balkan Wars. And here is, and what do? The TCA actually sets up endowed chairs at universities all across the country for millions of dollars, right? And like we see here, for example, here is somebody called Justin McCarthy. I don't know why these Irish guys are all with the Turks, man. But anyway, Justin McCarthy, he's the professor of history at the University of Louisville in Kentucky. And he is basically rewriting what happened during the Balkan Wars. And he says, during the Balkan Wars, many groups suffered, but those who suffered the most were the Muslims, especially the Turks. 27% of the Muslims of the conquered areas of the Ottoman Empires, mostly Turks, died as a result of these wars, the worst civilian mortality witnessed in any modern European war. We are talking about the Balkan countries that tried to liberate themselves from 500 years of Ottoman occupation, and this is the narrative. Okay, this is what is being taught in our universities right now through these endowed chairs by guys like Justin McCarthy, right? That this act of resistance resulted in the death of Turks, not Greeks, not Serbians, not Bulgarians, not Albanians, okay? Turks, okay? What else do we have? Well, the Armenian issue, here we go. So these are all the professors. Look at all these endowed chairs. I mean, take a look. There's Princeton, there's Brandeis, there's George Washington, there's Hunter College, and there's Justin McCarthy, the guy we were just talking about at the University of Louisville. And you see, they're saying that the Armenians need to apologize to the Turks, okay? Because there were numerous bloody Armenian revolts. 1.5 million Armenians are killed, and the Armenians have to apologize. I guess they have to apologize that a bunch of them were hiding and more didn't get slaughtered. Okay, I mean, this is literally the narrative that is being put out there by this group. Okay, all right, let's go. Okay, here we go. So House Resolution 306. So this was some years ago, and it was a resolution about religious freedom. And this was a pro-religious freedom resolution, okay? And you'll see that the Turkish Coalition of America, that same group that got fined for secretly funding money, is denouncing the passage of that resolution, okay? And what the resolution says is the U.S. does not support human rights and religious rights violations in Turkey. I mean, that's what it says, right? I mean, how can we take issue with that? This is that is the core of our country, right? And look at this. They say Congress could have chosen to take an even-handed approach, okay, about the cultural issues in and around Turkey and enhance the ability of the United States. I mean, that's like where you're talking and not saying anything. And they denounce this thing. I mean, can you imagine if a German Chamber of Commerce came out and said that the worst thing that happened during World War II was that a bunch of Germans were killed by Jewish freedom fighters? I mean, that's the equivalent of what we're looking at here, right? Okay, now let's go something closer to home. What do they say about Greek Independence Day? The cost to the Ottoman Turks, okay? This is the same group, Lincoln McCarthy, all right? So the day marks the beginning of the murder of 25,000 Ottoman Muslims of Greece, who would set a pattern for other nationalistic revolts in the Balkans, okay? And they're basically saying that we slaughtered the Turks during this revolt, and that when the European powers finally forced the Ottomans to create a Greek kingdom in the Morea, this is at the end of the Greek War of Independence, right? We all know that. It was a Greek kingdom devoid of Turks who had lived there for centuries, okay? No, who had occupied us for centuries, right? So let's keep going. All right, so now here, oh, this is great. Okay, so there was a TV show out of Turkey involving, it was like a soap opera, and this is a few years ago, right? And so apparently it got picked up by one of the Greek cable stations. I mean, just to show you how deep the penetration is in terms of trying to influence the psyche, okay? And look at this. So this was a Greek TV channel was picking up this soap opera, this Turkish soap opera that would show up at like 1 or 2 in the morning, right? And apparently, you know, at 1 or 2 in the morning, some people from Greece were watching it. But the Turks took it one step further, and what they said was that that basically the Greeks want to be Turks, and the Greeks are now learning how to speak Turkish. That Greeks are now going to Turkey to visit because they're miserable, because they're gloomy, because this was in the midst of the Greek recession. And so, how do you solve the problem of the Greek population during the height of the economic crisis in Greece? It's very simple. You become Turkish. I mean, that's and this is something published by the Turkish Coalition of America and given to our House of Representatives, to members of the Turkey caucus, right? By Lincoln McCurdy and by these professors at these universities. All right. So let's go back. So here, this is the, let me see here. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you this again. I know Anthony showed this, but let me give a little more context here. So Erdogan comes to DC. a bunch of American citizens, like Anthony said, are across the street peacefully protesting. No bottle throwing, no Molotov cocktails, no rocks. They are holding up signs. And what do the signs say? Okay, promote religious freedom in Turkey. Erdogan travels with a delegation of his bodyguards. These are the guys in the black suits. And I want you to look real carefully at the guy on the ground, how many times he gets kicked in the head. Now look, this is in Washington, D.C. These are American citizens on the ground. And I'm going to show you this again because I'm going to show you what the Turks said about this in just a minute. Okay? Watch this.
Contains some disturbing images.
Get back! They attacked this man, you saw him. Look him right at him. Hey, go! Hey! Keep going! Get back out there! You're done! Save me, man! Hey, save me, man!
The following.
Hold on, let me see here. Let me get out of this.
The following report contains some
Okay. All right, give me 1 second, please. Okay, so we saw that this happened right in front of the police. I mean, you saw police officers right in front of their eyes, kicking a man in the head 4 times, bloody faces. How many of them got arrested? 0. How many indictments were issued against them while they were here? 0. 0. Okay? And what is it that the Turks said about the incident you just saw, right? We talked about gaslighting and we talk about fake news. Look at this. The protesters were the aggressors. I guess that guy used his head to scuff up the security guard's shoe. I guess that's what they're talking about. Okay, and what else did they say? Look at this. Now, look, whether you like Donald Trump or not, the one thing we know is the words "I'm sorry" have never come out of this man's mouth. Okay, and look at this. This is the national newspaper in English in Turkey talking about what just happened, that Trump apologized for the incident. Okay, not true, by the way, not true. Okay, so let's keep going. So, now let's talk about, I'm going to try to do this quickly. This guy, Putin. Okay, so this guy, now why are we going to talk about him? Because as we know, the ecumenical patriarch, after he took the courageous action of granting autocephaly to the Ukrainian church, the Russian Orthodox Church broke communion with us. Okay, now why did they do that? Well, who did that? This guy. This is Patriarch Kirill, okay? Now, what do we know about him? Well, a couple of things you need to know about the Russian Orthodox Church. Between 2009 and 2019, that is a 10-year period, Putin built 9,386 new churches. 9,386. That's an average of one church opening every single day during a 10-year period. And what is it about the Russian Orthodox Church that makes it unique? The R is capitalized, the O is not. Okay, it is the Russian Orthodox Church. It is a very unique form of orthodoxy. And why do I say that? Because in the 1930s, during the height of the Soviet Union, and the Soviets had killed tens of thousands of priests because Marx said religion is the opiate of the people, Stalin figured out, you know what? If it's the opiate of the people, I want to be the drug dealer. I want to control it. So what did Stalin do? He had a bunch of, he basically used the KGB he brought priests in, made them KGB agents. And this sounds incredible, but this is verifiably true, okay? He made them KGB agents, and they basically began reporting, like if anybody in the confessional chamber would confess something during that, they would get reported. And so the church actually administratively, during the Soviet Union, if you look at an org chart, the church was under the KGB. It was under the KGB. Actually, the patriarch reported to the head of the KGB, the Russian patriarch, okay? Now, and the priests were ordered to spy on the faithful. Now, the current patriarch, this guy, Kirill, he graduated from seminary in 1970. Now, pay attention here, okay? And the KGB was fully infiltrated into the Russian Orthodox Church by that time. He has a meteoric rise through the ranks, like faster than anybody ever in the history of the Russian Orthodox Church. And by the way, at the same time, Putin was in the KGB, right? In the 70s. And so, hold on for 1 second. Okay. So this patriarch is inseparable from Putin. They appear together all the time, left hand, right hand, right? And this patriarch has said that Putin's rule is a miracle from God. In January 2019, Kirill thanked God and Putin for the Russian Orthodox Church and called the Russian government an equal partner with the Russian Orthodox Church. And Putin uses the Russian Orthodox Church to highlight the division between Russia and the West. It is essentially a tool of the state. Anywhere where there's a Russian embassy, Putin builds a Russian Orthodox Church right next to it. So we get to the Ukrainian issue, right? And Putin lamented that the borders of the USSR had collapsed. It was his great regret that the Soviet Union fell. And his vision is to be the Byzantine emperor again, right? So what does he do? He uses the Russian Orthodox Church to control the Ukraine so that it could plant leaders loyal to Moscow. And when the Ukraine joined the European Union in 2014, Putin viewed this as a direct threat to Russia. And so what does he do? He invades the Crimea and he kills 15,000 Ukrainians. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church was under the control of the Russian Orthodox Church since 1686, temporarily, right? And Putin believes that the ecumenical patriarch should be in Moscow and not Constantinople. They should be the ecumenical patriarchate, not us. And their position is that the ecumenical patriarch is tied to the place and not the person, okay? So some of you may be wondering, as you're hearing all this, why doesn't the patriarch just move? Because it's holy space. And more importantly, our enemies would then announce we no longer are the ecumenical patriarchate because we're not there anymore. Okay. So, all right. So when we granted autocephaly, the Russian Orthodox Church, when we granted autocephaly to the Ukrainians, they begin a pattern of misinformation. Let me show you. Okay. First of all right. So this is a direct quote from the patriarch. The Russian church and the military are as a union of man and woman. Okay. Now think about that for a second. Think about what our priests say, right? Is the church is the bride of Christ, right? And that's the analogy that they're trying to draw there. And I guess in this analogy here, Putin is, I guess he's Christ or something like that. Okay, now why is Kirill going along with this, and why does he do whatever Putin says? Well, if you saw where our ecumenical patriarch lives, you would be aghast. Okay, it is modest. It looks like a dorm room. It looks like a dorm room. I want to show you where this guy lives. Look at this. This is this guy's house, paid for by the Russian state. Oh, excuse me. Here's a picture of Putin as an icon, and look at what the soldiers are doing. They're kissing the icon, right? I mean, they're not venerating Christ or the Mother of God. They're venerating Putin. Now look at this. This is the house where the patriarch lives. This is his house, right? I mean, I don't think there's one house like that in the United States. I know there's some big properties, but I don't even think Bill Gates has something like this. I mean, this is where this guy lives. And the government spent, it's on 7 acres, and the government spent $43.4 million renovating it just a couple years ago. Okay. Now, last thing, and then I'm going to get to hacking. Okay. Your parish email server almost certainly has been hacked by the Russians. The Archon email server has almost certainly been hacked by the Russians. Why do I say that? Because there's a group called, it's a stupid name, but it's called Fancy Bear, right? And this is a group that is armed by the Russian government. And this is all, there's lots and lots of government studies on the US government about this group. And they're the ones that interfered with the election and are trying to interfere with elections. And this Fancy Bear, what they do is they will break into emails. For example, a defense contractor, U.S. intelligence workers. Mueller, the special investigator, indicted 12 Russian intelligence agents over this. Now, what is their aim? What is this group, Fancy Bear? What is their aim? Geopolitical disruption. That includes the Greek Orthodox Church, okay? And they want to do it through cyber influence, okay? And they want to go after people that are hostile to Russian interests. They hacked the French elections in 2016, the German parliament, the World Anti-Doping Agency, the one that monitors Olympic athletes. And their aim is to weaken, I mean, when you get people fighting, okay, it weakens the fabric of that country. And so let me show you something. Look at this. Okay, so this is from the Ecumenical Patriarchate, Nikos Yorios Papachristou. There really is a person named that, okay? And you'll see, it looks like a regular email. It looks like it was sent from somebody at the Patriarchate. This is on Google, by the way. Okay? This is on Google, Gmail, which is supposed to be secure. And what it says is that and this went out to every parish in the United States. Your parish priest probably clicked this. Look at this, right? And it's talking about doing the work of the church and clicking on the file, right? Pursuant to a directive of the Ecumenical Patriarch. The problem here is this is fake. Lots of priests, including people at the Archdiocese, clicked on this, right? And now they are in, right? Here's another one. And look at this. This appears to be from Google. It's got the Google logo, and it says, someone recently used your password to try to sign into your Google account. Okay, and you see where it says reset password? If you click that, you are giving Fancy Bear access to everything on your computer. Everything. Pictures, emails, sensitive work that you've done at your job. And so if one of you gets elected to Congress 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we have a lot of prominent archons. They've got your stuff. Okay. Now, yeah, see, reset password. You click that. Okay. This is all fake. All right. Now, why am I telling you all this? Okay. You're probably thinking to yourself right now, holy moly, what have I gotten myself into? Right? So between the Turks and the Russians, we are talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that are being used to infiltrate every aspect of our society and our church. And for $1.3 million, that's our budget, $1.3 million, okay? We do a really, really good job at being able to get the truth out there. Notwithstanding, goodness knows how much money they spent trying to defeat some of these state resolutions, we got them passed. Okay. And it is the tireless effort of all of the archons that are able to, at least in the secular world, keep our church alive. Now, time, talent, and treasure. We picked you, and I'm sorry I've gone over. I'm wrapping up right here. We picked you because we think you have the ability and you have the intelligence and you have the resolve to fight back against all of this fake news and misinformation and become a missile of the truth. But look, here's the thing. It takes money. And we're all volunteers, right? I mean, I don't get anything. Dr. Limbarakis doesn't get anything. But we need paper. We need supplies. The box, we got to pay for the boxes that we sent your package in. Okay? We got a full-time employee who is grossly underpaid. Krista, please don't take notes. Okay? She's grossly underpaid. And it's just, we are on a shoestring budget. And so you need to today, please pull this out. This is the pledge card. Now look, here's the deal, right? We have broken up the year 365 days because the archons work 365 days a year. Every day there is somebody somewhere advancing our cause. And most of that, overwhelming most of that, is done for free. A tiny part of that involves expenses, and we got to pay for that. So we've broken the year up into days, and we're going to ask each and every one of you. And look, I am not going to say anything you give is appreciated. Okay, because that's part of that Greek thing where we just are not capable of talking about money. Okay, I want y'all to please, each and every one of you, sponsor a day. That's $3,000. And what I'd really like you to do is put it on your credit card in 12 equal installments, just like you have the option to do here. And why do we want to do that? Because if all the money comes in December, how are we going to pay for things in March? We need to get it in 12 equal installments. Okay. We published a list of who all the sponsors are. Okay. I'm a little annoyed that we use the term sponsors for the banquet because the sponsor is supposed to be for the pledge. Okay. So we need you to become a sponsor. We need each and every one of you to become a sponsor. That's $250 a month. Now, look, what I just showed you, and I know I took a long time, it's the tip of the iceberg. This is the tip of the iceberg. I've got another 30 people that I can talk about in Congress that are just as dirty, okay? And we use the truth to fight against this. We're not bribing anybody. We're not paying anybody, okay? we have God on our side. And so please, it requires some money. Please today, fill this out, put it in the envelope, put your credit card down, mail it, and forget about it. And then your credit card is going to be charged $250 a month indefinitely until you call the office and you tell them you want to change the amount. Okay. And then you will be listed as a sponsor, and we're going to list the sponsors again in about a month. Okay. So that's the treasure. And on your talent and your time, take action, figure out what works for you, but at least start with doing a presentation at your home parish. Okay, that's all I've got. Thank you.